I'm just going to go ahead and dive right into this. And by the way, we are live on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, on Twitch, and on Periscope, if you can still get there, and on lightsource.com. By the way, if you haven't checked out Lightsource, check out lightsource.com. Cool site. Now, why am I live on all those? Our handle is at Life Today TV on all those. So I encourage a subscription and all that. Well, part of the reason I'm live on all those at once is sometimes I say things that can get me kicked off of those things. And I'm about to say that right now. So fair warning. And what I want to say is this. You are created by God. You are created by God for a reason, with a purpose. You didn't crawl out of the mud. You didn't evolve from it. You were created by God. When God created what we collectively call mankind, he didn't create black people and then create white people and then create whatever. That's a fake, non-scientific, non-biblical social construct, all right? He didn't create rich and then poor. That's a product of many different factors. You know, he didn't create, well, let me tell you what he did create. He created male and female. That's the way God did it. If you were born a little boy, you're a man. I don't care what you do to your body or what hormones you inject. You're a man. If you're born a little girl, you're a woman. That is foundational for your happiness, your well-being, for everything in life. And our culture seems to have completely lost its mind when it comes to this. But men, we need to be men. Women, you need you to be women. We need each other. One's not better than the other. They're both hugely important, and we work together as men and women. It's a better life. It's a happier life. It's much more fulfilling. So controversy out of the way. Today we're going to talk about what it means to be a man. And I have someone who has really been called by God to put this message out there. His name is Brian Tome. He's a pastor from Ohio, Northern Kentucky area, campuses all over with Crossroads Church. He had a book called The 5 Marks of a Man that really spoke to a lot of people. He's got a new devotional I'll show you in a second. He's got a podcast, I like this, called The Aggressive Life. Okay? It's okay in a certain capacity. We'll talk about that. And he started this thing called Man Camp, which I'm guessing we'll get an update on post-COVID because that's probably disrupted, but Man Camp. Would you like to go to Man Camp? If you're struggling, honestly, seriously, if you're struggling with your gender identity or whatever, it's okay to come here. Safe place. We love you. But we're going to give you some truth that's going to help you. You might need to go to Man Camp. Pastor Brian Tome, it is so cool to have you on Life Today Live. Appreciate you being with us today.
Randy, it's an honor to be with you, and I hope I don't bore you and everybody else to tears.
Okay, well, we'll find out. Only one way to find out, okay? So I forgot to show people this. This is a new devotional called Move, a guide to get up and go forward, which is perfectly timed post-COVID because a lot of people feel like they don't know what to do or where to go, or they've been stuck. But I'm curious on this. You're very intentional about men being men and what that looks like and what the world tells us about masculinity is so screwed up. Why this topic for you? Why is this such a big thing for you?
Well, I think there's a lot of confusion around the whole male-female thing. You mentioned earlier what's going on with transgender dysphoria and a bunch of stuff like that. And one thing I'd kind of tweak what you said if you have certain parts, you are a man. I'd say actually a little different. If you have certain parts, you are a male, because
Okay.
there are 15-year-old men, and I know 45-year-old boys as well. And that's what got me started in the whole thing, was just my own personal story, Randy. I just kept trying to prove that I was a man. I just, the way it would look for me was abusing alcohol in high school and doing things with girls and bragging about it, or not doing things with girls and lying about it, or trying to, build my biceps to a certain size, and on and on and on. There's nothing wrong with having big biceps, like as big as yours, Randy. I mean, everyone wants to have biceps as big as yours. There's nothing wrong with that. But I came to recognize, as I was reading the scriptures, that Jesus had told to him something that I never had told to me. And that was his heavenly Father speaks to him in the New Testament 3 times. He probably spoke to him more than 3 times, but there's only 3 times that are actually recorded that he actually hears from God. And 2 of those are the exact same thing. This is my son in whom I'm well pleased. He hears that at his baptism, and he hears this is my son in whom I'm well pleased at the transfiguration when he has Peter, James, and John with him. And I realized this is probably the best day in Jesus' life. Every male, until he hears a father figure, put his hand on the back of his neck, pull him close and say, son, I'm proud of you. You've done well. You are a man. Until we have that done to us, we keep trying to prove that we're a man. That's what I was trying to do all through high school and even in college. I kept trying to prove I was a man. And then when I had a son, I realized, oh my goodness, Randy. my son came out of my wife. They put him on the little changing table there. I went to hold his little hand, and he sent a stream of urine up in the air that hit me in the shoulder, came down my arm, and I remember thinking, yeah, I'm going to have to get a hold of this little guy, because if I don't get a hold of this little guy, he's going to defecate all over me, just like I defecated all over my dad growing up. And that started me on a journey to understand who I was before God, and what separates, pun intended, actually, what separates actually the men from the boys.
And that's a beautiful illustration from a pastor. So thank you for that mental picture. I know exactly.
I don't know your audience very well, Randy. I would have used some different words there that I actually was thinking. So
it's all right. We're good. I totally forgot my next question. The things you mentioned, that the world, unfortunately, through, I don't know whether it's through Hollywood, whether it's through stereotypes, whether it's just bad imagery passed down from generation to generation, but we have a completely wrong idea of what it means to be a man in a lot of cases. And you touched on several of those. And I think some of the pushback, the toxic masculinity thing, is a pushback on bad things, but sometimes the pushback is with even worse things or other bad things. What's the right thing? What is it? What does it mean to be in God's universe? What's the significance of manhood?
Well, toxic masculinity is a really difficult term to describe and define. I mean, what do we mean by that? Some people mean if you like driving a pickup truck, then you're just some stereotypical toxic masculine aspect. I don't think so. But then on the other hand, Randy, we can't deny that if you open up the newspaper on any given day, and especially in world history, you're going to find men who have abused their power. You're going to find men that are taking advantage of other people. It just comes up again and again and again. So if we're talking about toxic masculinity that way, then okay, let's have that conversation. But in actuality, that isn't a man who's doing that. That's a boy. That's a boy who may be a millionaire. That's a boy who may have 500 people reporting to them and be CEO. But that's a boy. I think this is critical for us today, especially those of us who are people of faith, because we're losing men. Men have left the church. I wouldn't say men are leaving the church. I would say men have left the church as clearly as Elvis has left the building. They're just not there. I mean, it's been said before. It's very true. If a man-eating lion came into the average church, he would die of starvation, because there's just not any men in churches. If your church is killing it, I mean killing it, you got 70% women and 30% men. And the culture of our churches are incredibly feminized. And by that, by the way, but I'm not saying here that women shouldn't be strong leaders. I'm not saying that women can't be leaders in the local church. I know I'm an outcast for some. I believe in women leading. I believe in women being at every level of leadership in our church. So I'm not talking about that like the feminization of the church. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the language that we use in our sermons. The programs that we create are much more acceptable and wanted by a woman than they are a man. Men don't want to sit around in a living room with a book on their lap, looking at somebody and talking about their feelings. They don't want to do that. They want to do something. Men want something a bit different. And so I think from top to bottom in Christendom in America, we've got some massive, massive problems. We got our most ardent followers of Christ in America. Any pastor will tell you this. The most ardent followers of Christ in America are women. I'm not saying there aren't men that follow Christ. I'm just saying women are the backbone of Christendom in America right now. And that's not the way it is with Islam, by the way. Islam's most intense in adherents to their religion are men. Of course, they're blowing themselves up and doing a bunch of awful things. But I'm saying religion and spirituality, by its nature, is not anti-masculine, but the form of Christianity that we have in America and many parts of the world actually is very anti-masculine, and the numbers bear that out.
Hmm. How do we know? How do you know the difference? If you got maybe you're a woman and you've got a husband or a father or a brother or a son, how do you know if they're a boy, no matter what their age, or a man? Are there any distinct markers?
Yes, there's five of them. There's five of them, and I actually wrote a book in this called Five Marks of the Man. I know we're going to talk about my devotional move, which I'm actually very excited about, but this is kind of a precursor to it. When I wanted my son to come into a healthy form of being a man, I had to search the scriptures. I searched my own experience of all the men that I've looked up to, all the father figures I've had. I went through in my mind all the biographies I've read, and why are certain people have biographies written about them, and what are those things about them? And I found five things again and again, and your listeners can just verify this. Every man that you respect, every man you want to be like, has all five of these things. Not perfectly. We fall every once in a while, but these five things are in there. Number one, and these aren't numerical order, these are just generality. One, a man has a vision, a boy lives day to day. Men are working for something. They see something out in the future that they're going to have difficulty and time separating them from where they are right now in their vision. Boys don't have a vision. They just want a nice day. They want a comfortable day. That's one. Number two, men work and boys play. Men work. Adam and Eve in the garden. Adam, before sin entered in the world, he worked. He worked. When men are drawn, when males are drawn to books like the 8-Hour Work Week, there's a problem. When males have a fantasy of retiring at age 55 and not working anymore, that's a problem. There's going to come a day when you're going to be downsized, right-sized. You're not going to have the energy that you need to work a 50-hour week. But no man aspires to not work, because men, we're meant to work. Number three, men are team players. Boys want to be MVP. Men are okay to be interdependent with one another. Men have bonds with one another. Men function well as a team. Boys not. They want to have their ball and go home. They want to be all-time quarterback. They're all about themselves all the time.
True. So true. Cool.
Four, men are protectors. Boys are predators. Boys take. They'll take a virginity from a woman. They will take hours from their employer when they're not actually working and charge it to their employer. They will just take from their parents. I took from my dad. I just took from my dad. Every car my dad had, I wrecked. Every rule my dad had, I took and just took on my own. Boys are predators. Men are protectors. And that doesn't mean just we protect women. It also means we protect people who are vulnerable. The reason why we have savings and the reason why we tithe financially is those are forms of being a protector. That's four. And then number five, last one I'll cover is men are in the minority and the boys are in the majority. Boys are like pigeons. They're all over the place. They flock together. They're like, bah, 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 bah. They all say the same thing. They don't do anything. They just eat the peckings off the ground, and they poop all over the place. And then the least bit of difficulty or noise, they all flock away together. Yeah. Men are like eagles. They're like falcons. You know, they're hovering above the whole thing, and they realize they're in the minority. If you want me to vote for you, you're probably going to lose, because my values are the minority values of our country. You want to start talking about sexual ethics? I know I'm sounding weird. I know you can call me a hater for a bunch of different reasons. I'm okay with that, because I know I'm okay with God. You're going to be in the minority as a man. So those are the 5 marks. Those are the 5 distinguishing characteristics.
No, I appreciate you taking the time to share those, because I'm laughing because it's true, and it's painfully true. And oh man, okay. So that's in your book, the five marks of a man.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I want to talk about this one. We're talking to Pastor Brian Tome, and this is his new book that he's excited about, a devotional called Move. And so dive in. This is I'm
Yeah.
curious. Where do you go from there, man?
Well, okay. Well, it's a good little story here. So I'll give you a little background.
Go for it.
I, I wanted to build into my son. I wanted my son to have a head start on manhood more so than me. And so when I have a motorcycle and he was 12, we went on a motorcycle ride, him in the back of the bike. And we had this camping gear and we camped, and it was kind of a cool thing at 12 years old. It was fun. And then he turned 16, 17, and I let him get his motorcycle license. And then I took him on a manhood trip. One of the things we don't have in our culture is every man in ancient civilizations is told they're a man by the culture. There's a swearing in ceremony. This has been written about on a lot of different fronts. But I realized I need to give my son a swearing in ceremony. I thought, well, let's take him and some other men on a motorcycle trip out west, and I'll swear him in out then. And I told my son, look, I'm buying your meal, my meal. I'm buying your gas and my gas. I can't afford any hotels for us, so we're gonna have to camp. At that point, we weren't campers at all. But just to be able to do a trip, we're gonna have to camp. So we did it. And what do you know? We actually liked it. We liked it a lot. And what that started over the next few years is I would have motorcycle trips with other guys where we camped, and every day we'd sit around the campfire and we talk about our life. It wasn't just talking about our life. We tell stupid jokes and we crack on one another and we tell stories. But there was always a moment where someone got vulnerable and they opened up their life. They talked about a struggle. This happened over and over and over and over again. And so one morning I said to the guys, there are a lot of men that need this kind of interaction with other men. And they're not gonna buy a motorcycle. That's not their thing. We should create something that an average guy can come to and sit around a campfire. There's things, Randy, that are first in anthropological history. Like there's things that you and I are dealing with right now that no man in all of history on every corner of the globe has had to deal with. You and I are the first. I'll give you one of them. Men have never been out-educated by women until right here and right now. Women outnumber men on college campuses, I think about 60-40, or at least it's going that way. And whoever has the most education has the most money. We are now seeing more and more men who are getting out-earned by their wives, which again, I that's fine. Doesn't bother me. I wish my wife out-earned me. Yeah, I'd have more motorcycles, right? No problem there. But for the average guy, he can't think of his dad or his grandfather. Like, how does this work? He feels very inadequate, the average guy, because this has never happened before. Average men today have never killed something. We've never actually literally brought home food unless we've gone to Kroger. This is the first generation of men in the history of the world that's never done that. There's theories out there that the reason why PTSD is so difficult right now with today's vets, while they're the greatest trained warriors in the history of the world, arguably, they're also the first warriors that ever went into battle and have never killed something. In World War II, everybody grew up on farms. They were wringing the necks of chicken, or they were deer hunters. They saw life go. And when you've never seen life leave something God has created in the first time as a human being, that will jack you up.
No kidding. Yeah.
Utterly jack you up. So that's, again, something that is totally new and foreign to us. Staring into a fire, this is a long, circuitous way, Randy, to talk about your original question. Staring into a fire is an incredibly primal event. When a man stares into fire, he is tapping into something in his code that every man, every human being has always done. That's why it's mesmerizing. I don't know if it's literally in our DNA or if it's hardwired into our soul, or I don't know what it is, but there's something about staring into a fire. And so when we created what we call Man Camp, which was just a bunch of guys coming together, sitting around a campfire, doing some games, having some worship, doing some other challenges. Like, there's a lot of unexpected things. It's kind of adventuresome. When we did this coming out on the bike trips, we've had now, I think, 17,000 guys go through Man Camp. And I've sat with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of men around campfires talking about Christ, talking about the higher calling that he has for us, talking about the love of a father who binds up his brokenhearted sons. And what I kept saying the same things over and over and over and over and over and over. So finally I said, let's make a book of this, and let's make these devotions, these core scriptural verses that I keep coming back to again and again and again and again. And that's the book Move. Or there are things that I say to men all the time, and things that help men see things they hadn't seen before and helps them to move. And this is not if you're looking for a book that says, oh, give me some more flowery ideas about Jesus, that is not what this is. Jesus didn't come to give flowery ideas. Why do we think Jesus has flowers and soft lambs that he's always petting? He doesn't. This is a guy who told his friends, get on boats, go to the far reaches of the world, tell them about me. These were people who never had been outside of 10 miles where they were born. Wherever you were born, you died inside of 10 miles. And Jesus puts them on an adventure, says, go into all the world, go. This is elevating the challenge, elevating the game of men. And there's something wrong with our Christianity when the goal of our Christianity in our country is to just get you to stop watching porn. That's great. That's a great goal. Let's not do porn, and not do the thing that follows right after porn or during porn. I'm totally for that. That's exactly right. But there's something wrong when that is defining what churches are about with men. We're to equip guys to go on the adventure that God's created them for, and that's what Move's about.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, I'm laughing because
I see you want to laugh. You can laugh. You look like you're ashamed to laugh, Randy. You're allowed to laugh.
no, well, I have a microphone. I don't want to overpower you. I want people to hear what you're saying. But no, it's. I grew up in a Baptist church that was, God love them, it was more about what I shouldn't do than what I should, and I think that's just damaging, especially to boys who need to become men. And so, yeah, there are things you shouldn't do. We all agree with that. But when that's all you talk about and you don't give somebody what to do, which is what you're doing, it creates a void, and God knows what'll walk into that void, you know?
Right.
Anyway.
Yes. Simply trying to be obeyers of the 10 Commandments is not going to get it done. You can obey the 10 Commandments now the cows come home, and God's will isn't going to be created to a greater degree here on this earth. That's not the kingdom of God going forward. That's keeping yourself from being DQ'd. So I'm fine with us having high standards for one another. That's okay, but that's not the point. And it's not just Baptist. I grew up Presbyterian. It's basically the religion industry, and trying to keep rules. And most men are not interested in keeping rules.
Yeah. Do you like bonfires as much as I do? Big bonfires.
Yeah, I like the challenge of just seeing them get built, right? It's just, why is it that every man likes it, and women too? What is that? I think it's something ancient in us, and I think our modern culture is just stripping us of ancient rhythms that we've all lived by. Even just things as simple as fixing something.
Yeah.
The average guy can't remember the last thing he fixed. We pay for someone to change our oil. We pay for somebody to figure out when our toilet is clogged. I'm okay for paying people. There's no problem with that, really. Here, I'm not trying to give a new morality saying, thou must now change your oil or you're not a man, or thou must, unclog your own toilet and not call Roto-Rooter or you're not a man. I'm not trying to do that. I'm just saying that as a man, when a man doesn't know how to change a tire on his car, when he doesn't know some of these basic things, he feels unworthy. He feels weak. He feels like he doesn't measure up in that moment. And it's because, again, we're created to fix things. That's what we've always done in every corner of the globe and all throughout history. Bring things in, add value, build things.
Right.
And most of us are maybe building an Excel spreadsheet, but nothing more than that.
Yeah. Well, we just moved houses. I feel like I'm fixed everything coming out of the previous house and into the new one. And it's not because I'm a man. It's because I'm, it's a little bit poor, can't afford that, and a little bit cheap, don't want to afford that, right? So, yeah. But beyond the practical things, right, of whatever, the manly thing, what is it spiritually that you see that men are missing that they really need in order to be who God created them to be and to feel more fulfilled, to not have that void from a spiritual standpoint?
I think the starting point is, again, the 2/3 of what Jesus heard from his Father. This is my Son in whom I'm well pleased. Until a man feels like his Father approves of him, his heavenly Father approves of him and is for him, he's not going to be at peace. Here's a little bit of my story. Just get a little more vulnerable. I was born at a very early age, and then I was adopted. My dad, who adopted me at birth, great guy, thankful for my dad. He and I had zero in common.
Dude, I'm right there with you.
Nothing, right?
Yeah.
I was into sports. He was a nuclear engineer, troubleshot nuclear reactors. I had a hard time with long division. I was taller. He was shorter. My ears are sucked into my head. His ears are out on the side. Just on down the line, just thing after thing after thing after thing after thing after thing.
Yeah.
I always thought, man, if I found my birth father someday, that probably would help me understand who I am, because my sense of humor is different from my dad. My interests are different, like just everything on down the line. And what do you know, about 2 years ago, I got to meet my birth father. He was, what is right now? 74. And, he's in good health. That was always very encouraging to see. Very, very good health. Doing some good stuff. And I sat down and talked to him, and he's on his third marriage. He doesn't know where his daughters, my half sisters, live in the country. He's on his third marriage, he married a Filipino woman who, and he was just saying a hint, nudge, like, that's what I needed to keep up with me sexually, kind of stuff. I just go on down, no sense of relationship with God. Really, I just say all this stuff. A nice guy. I might just say good guy. It doesn't sound good with the way I've described him, but really, I'm with him like, if you met this guy, hey, that's a good guy, right? But anyway, in the middle of that interaction, right afterwards, I had this crisis where I went like, oh my gosh, who am I? Who am I? I really started melting down, because I'm not like my dad who adopted me. He's my dad. I'm not like the guy who fathered me, or who impregnated my mother, right? And I'm like, what? And I sense God say to me very clearly, softly and distinctly, God said to me, you're my son, and I approve of you.
Yeah.
That's what he said, you're my son. And even down to, like, I sensed him saying stuff like, and what's his voice, what's my voice at this point? I don't know, but this was a key pushing forward for me. He said, I like your sense of humor. Your vices don't bother me. I just sensed like all these things. Like I kept going, well, this dad has this and I don't, so I measure up. This dad has this, I don't measure. And when a man comes to understand that God is good with you, God's good with you. Have you ever thought about this as a man? Ephesians says that, and this has been very well preached out, that women are to respect their husbands, and husbands are to love their wives. You ever heard that teaching?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a really interesting teaching there, because our wives need to be told, I love you, need to be shown love all the time. But if you're a woman, your husband doesn't want to hear that you love him. He wants you to hear that you respect him.
Yeah.
You say to him, honey, I respect you.
Mm-hmm.
You will cause him to elevate and levitate. And if you say to yourself, well, he doesn't deserve it once he earns it, does he say, once you deserve it, once you earn love, I'm going to give that to you?
Yeah.
Right? So that love and respect thing is very significant. And here's the thing. Have you ever considered, Randy, that God, why are we so big on the love of God? You know why we're so big on the love of God? Well, it's true. It's in the Bible. God is love. We should be. But also we're big on the love of God because the American church is feminized, and it's about love. It's always talks about love. When's the last time you heard that God respected you?
Well, and
He respects you.
I think that's hard, because we know God loves us despite our shortcomings, right?
Yeah.
But can you say God respects you even with your shortcomings? I think that's a hard one for people.
Of course it's hard because we come from works religion where I'm supposed to keep the rules in order to earn God's love. Keeping the rules to earn God's love is the same way as saying if I keep the rules, then God will respect me. You have to feel as a man, you've got to feel that God is good with you. Yeah. He respects you. That doesn't mean that God doesn't have things he's working on in you. It doesn't mean that God isn't going to do some, major things to get your attention.
Right.
But like when a man, like when I say to a guy, if God was to say to you one thing, what is it? There's something wrong when 99 out of 100 guys thinks, oh no, God would probably crack on me for X, Y, Z.
Sure.
I know God would probably tell me I'm not giving enough. He'd probably tell me to stop smoking cigars. He'd probably tell me to leave corporate world and go into nonprofit. He'd probably tell me I'm not praying enough with my kids. When our instinctual thought is God would tell me I'm not doing something well, you know what it means? Instinctually, we don't believe he respects us. Yep. Instinctually, we don't believe he's good with us. Yep. Until you believe that God is good with you, you cannot have all the good things that God wants for you. Ooh. Jesus knew that, and Jesus was constantly telling his disciples these things. Let's talk about aggressive. You mentioned my podcast, The Aggressive Life. I'm kind of dissecting manhood, Randy, right now, and also dissecting American Christianity at the same time. Aggression. I'm a big believer in being aggressive. My motto, one of my mottos is make aggressive mistakes. If you're going to make a mistake, have it not be a passive mistake, aggressive mistake. By the way, that's the thing that goes through all 5 of those marks that we mentioned earlier, is that boys are passive. They let things happen to them. Men are aggressive. They push things. Well, let's think about Peter for a minute here, okay? Peter, you bring up Peter, the average person rolls their eyes. Oh, Peter. Oh, gee, oh, poor Peter. Peter steps out on the boat and he looks at wind and waves and he starts thinking, oh, Peter. Oh, Peter. There's Peter. He takes his sword and whacks off the ear of the Roman guard that's come to arrest Jesus. Oh, gosh. There's Peter. Oh, there's Peter. Saying that no matter who might leave you, Jesus, I'll never leave you. He's aggressively saying this. Oh, tisk, Peter. Oh, and there's Peter. There he is, denying Christ 3 times. Hey, have you ever considered that despite all these things and more, Peter was in Jesus' top 3? Jesus gave Peter, James, and John more insider information than any of them. And Jesus was giving them those insider things while Peter was doing this. Yeah. But, American feminized Christianity, it's all about rules. You must earn it for God to like you. Sees Peter, oh, you looked at the wind and the waves and you sunk in the water. Where Jesus says, what Jesus sees is, you're the only guy who stepped out of the boat. You're the only one. You're the only one who said you wanted more, wanted to step out. While the average Christian goes, oh, there's Peter. There's Peter. He's whacking off a guy's ear. If you whacked off a guy's ear with a sword, Jesus saw that sword before he used it. He didn't reprimand him for having a sword, right? He reprimanded him for taking off the ear in that specific situation. When the average Christian goes, oh no, there's Jesus, there's Peter. 3 times he denied him. Yeah, it was awful. It was humiliating. And you know why he denied him 3 times? You know why he was put in that position? Because he's the only one who is there. That's why. Because all the rest of the losers, they ran away. Mm-hmm. He was like hanging around going like, hey, if I can save them, I just want to be with them. He was there and he was in a position to deny Christ 3 times. And he got the appropriate shock towards his pride because he previously pridefully said, oh, I'll never. So yeah, there's stuff going on. But all I'm saying here is that if Jesus can say to Peter, you're going to be the rock, I'm going to rename you Rock. And if Peter was a corporate, with all that he did, you know what that means? Jesus respected Peter. Yeah. And if Jesus respected Peter, God respects Peter. And if God could respect Peter for all those things, and if you've never denied Christ before a crowd 3 times in a row, any of you have done that? One other guy still got the respect of Jesus, and you can too. And until you know that he feels that way with you, you will not be bold because you will play it safe and you will do whatever it is not to screw up because you believe thou shalt not screw up. No, that is not the call of life that Jesus brought you to.
And you know what? I could go through example after example in the Bible where you're exactly right. That is exactly right. By the way, at Pentecost, who was the guy preaching at Pentecost, which is pretty significant?
Right.
Yep.
Peter, absolutely.
Yeah.
Great call.
Yeah.
Well, and actually, you talk about the Bible, Randy. Every Bible hero we have, everyone
Yeah.
was there not because of their morality. This is so shocking. It is not the morality of the Bible heroes that made them heroes. It was what they did. It was their bold, aggressive moves. We have the Hall of Faith in Hebrews, right?
Yep.
These people like Rahab, a prostitute? Yeah, because she's remembered for what she did. She let the spies into Jericho, right? Person after, and hear me again. I am not saying let's go break 10 commandments
Right.
and let's not honor Christ with our attitude. I'm not saying that. I'm just
Right.
saying our main points, our drivers that we've been communicating people, they're not central to who God is, and they're driving men away, and they're not bringing us closer to Christ. Every person in the Bible who's a hero had this aggressive thing where they were just going. But man, you do something today aggressive as a man, and you're thought of as being toxic masculinity or abandoning the faith. This is crazy. This is nuts. I mean, I had people like give me such a hard time when I ride my motorcycle without my helmet. Now, maybe you will too, but let's just talk about this. I'll go ahead. I'll set myself up. I'll just poke the bear right now. I'll just poke the bear. Okay. There's something wrong if you put a helmet on your kid on a tricycle when he's in your basement. You are serving fear. First Timothy tells us God's not given us a spirit of fear, but of love, power, of self-discipline. The idea of our helmetization has been crazy, utterly crazy. Then the Bible nowhere says that I can't have that I have to have a helmet when I ride my motorcycle. Not most of the time I do, probably 70% of the time I do.
Yeah.
But here's what I tell people. Look, you're all bummed out that I'm riding a motorcycle without a helmet sometimes when you see me. You gotta understand, I look at the choice you're making in your life. I would rather drive 80 miles an hour with loose lug nuts than make the personal choices you're making in your life. You're thinking about it's about safety. I'm thinking about it's about a holistic relationship with God, and but our culture that's so safety bound, safety oriented, and our Christianity that's so safety oriented. Who was the guy who wrote the classic book about 70 years ago? Your God's too safe. Your God's not safe. Whatever it was, but I don't know. I don't even know where we were, Randy. I'm having fun. What else do you want to talk about?
No, well, I got to let you go. We could keep talking, but we're going on. We come back to this, but definitely come back to this. I will say this. I'm okay with you not wearing the helmet on the motorcycle as long as you've got one of those medical masks so you don't get COVID while you're on your bike. I've actually seen that.
Double mask. It's not just a mask. It's double, which
double.
I was pro mask. It's not a mask, double mask, and even if you've got a vaccine, you still got to have a mask in some places. Like, come on.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna let the first wave of human trials go by, and I'll show you my unblemished shoulder here. So that's another issue. I'm not even going to go down that road, even though I kind of did. Here's what I hear you saying, if I can distill it. You're not calling people to be reckless or stupid or any of that, or to disrespect other people, even who are cautious. And you never know. I should have worn a helmet a couple of years ago when I was on a scooter, for crying out loud, because then I wouldn't have broken my face and been in the hospital a week and had plates put in my face. So,
Amen.
I hear you there. What I hear though is that if you are aggressively pursuing Christ, it's okay if occasionally you're making a mistake, but that's not your goal. But in the aggressive pursuit of Christ, that's really the kind of man that we should strive to be, aggressively pursuing the call of Christ on our lives. And God will take care of the mistakes. We don't try to make them, but we don't try not to make them to the point where we don't pursue Him aggressively. Is that a backliner copy for you?
Yeah, and let's make it a little more simple than something big and outlandish like riding a motorcycle and not having a helmet. You don't have to You don't have to ride a motorcycle to be a man or a Christian, certainly. And if you do, I'm with you. Helmets are a good idea, but it's smart, no problem. But I use that as extreme because, well, it's okay. A more approachable example. I was driving across country less than a year ago. And my car was my truck was pulling. I could tell it was out of alignment. It was just bothering me. I'm just like, and I'm just fighting the wheel
Sure.
and getting paranoid about the tires. Are they wearing unevenly and all that kind of stuff? So pulled off the highway, Googled alignment shop, went in, got some guy, and I kind of had to talk him into doing it ahead of time or wedging me into the other customers he had, and did the job. He did it really well. I'm walking to the truck after I get the keys, and I just sense the voice of God, like, I just sense it. Like, okay, I think I got that one. I went back to him. I said, hey, I don't know if this means anything to you, but I just sensed that God wanted you to know that He has not forgotten about you. And immediately, like, tears like well up in his eyes, like immediately, right? Got a couple of those things happen where I do believe, like, I'm on an adventure, and
Mm-hmm.
I could have an adventure here at the alignment shop. God could speak to me. I could meet somebody where they are, right? And you don't feel safe when you're doing that. What if this guy is a hardened atheist and he goes violent on me? Or what if he's just a normal guy, but he says, dude, you're weird, wacko.
Right.
You're exactly why I don't like Christians. And then I feel crap. You know what I mean? That's an aggressive move.
Yeah.
But
Right.
I feel like that's the adventuresome life that God has for me. Whether it's those kind of things, or whether it's amping up my level of giving, or whether it's starting a nonprofit, or whether it's encouraging somebody to do X, Y, Z. These are the adventuresome things that we don't talk too much about in our churches. We just talk about understanding of the Bible. And I don't mean understanding the Bible as far as what it should make you do. I mean, as far as here's the verse you have to really get it. Let me give you a verse. Right? I got this one right here. 1 Corinthians 16:13. Here's what it says. Be watchful, stand firm in the faith, act like men.
Men.
Act like men.
Act like men.
Doesn't say act like a mature individual. Doesn't say act like an enlightened person. Doesn't say act like a moral person. Doesn't act like men. Well, what is wrong and what has happened that act like men isn't a positive thing? You should be acting like a man. If you have the blessing of being a man, and there are a lot of blessings of being a man. As a man, except for maybe right now in all world history, you're in the advantage. And still, even today, it's much, much harder to be a female than it is to be a male.
Mm-hmm.
It is a blessing to be a man, and we need to be calling each other, act like a man.
Mm-hmm.
Get about the things God has called you to. Step out from your morality, your nice soft religiosity, your safety. Act like a man.
Yeah.
That's a call from the scripture itself.
And I think you'd agree with me, but I believe that acting like a man means obedience to God. And it's not going to look the same as that man and that man and that man. And it's not going to look like the world tells you, and it's not going to look like the movies tell you or whatever. It's acting in obedience, like you going to that guy in that auto shop.
Well, yeah, that verse says you're watchful, so you're obeying. You're trying to watch what's happening.
Got your eyes open, yeah.
Yeah, you're being faithful, and then the very next part is let all that you do be done in love. So that's exactly what you're talking about here.
Yeah.
This is what a true man does. He operates this way. Jesus obviously operated out of love when he died on a cross.
Yeah.
But we again as men, we're not having defined for us very well what love is. Love is not an emotion. I'm going to study on this right now. Love is not an emotion. It's not a feeling. It's always something that's being done. The most common word for love in the Hebrew in the Old Testament is hesed. Hesed occurs nearly 300 times. And it's translated sometimes loyal love, kindness, mercy. It's these things that God does. And so when we are to love, it's things that we do. It's not things that we
Yeah.
feel.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Things that we do.
Yep. Love. Is
See,
it? Is that Greek? Is that Hebrew word rather a verb, or is it a noun? Do you know?
oh, that's a good question. I don't know that.
All
I
right.
should know that. I don't know that.
Oh no. Hey, tune in for more. Maybe we'll do that. Love is a. I don't know. Maybe it is a verb, a noun, and I don't know. It'd be very interesting.
Yeah, well, there is a book written. Love is a verb, so I think that's accurate. But I'm not sure that specific word for love, if that one is a noun or a verb. I don't know because
Yeah.
there's a bunch of different words for love.
Yeah. And I love picking apart that kind of thing. But anyway, all right, Pastor Brian Tome. I need to show people a couple things real quick. And this right here is crossroads.net. Crossroads.net. That's the church. You can hear sermons. If you're looking for a church up in Ohio, Northern Kentucky area, you definitely check that out. This is the man camp. When are you having the next man camp? October, it says?
Yeah, October. So we're back online. It should be a fun one. We're expecting a few thousand people. So guys, come on in. Guys coming from all over the country.
Oh, do you have to ride a bike? I had to quit riding a bike
No.
because I moved to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and the people are so bad at driving. It just scared me.
No, most people are driving their minivans in. You drive your minivan in, then you have a little hike with all your stuff. So no, it's
Cool.
going to be great.
All right. And then the other thing, that's mancamp.us. The other thing is briantome.com. briantome.com. The podcast, you check that out there. He's got articles. You can see his other books. The one book, The 5 Marks of a Man. Whew, that just sounds like it'll preach. Pastor Brian Tome, man, thanks for spending so much time and going into the detail. This has been fun. I appreciate you.
My pleasure, Randy. And I think the thing that might be most helpful, most bite-sized for folks is my devotional move.
Yep.
Get up and get moving. People
you
find
stole my
that very,
thunder.
very helpful.
That's how I was going to close. But hey, man, you go.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's a lot of these simple things that are actually very profound and aren't talked about much are right there in that book. And if you got a man in your life, if you're a woman, you got a man in your life and you want to help push him along, this is one of the very few devotionals that's written in a masculine tongue about things that men care about. So I think you'll find your man is very thankful for the book, and in turn, you're going to be thankful that you actually spent some time in it. It's a very easy read, little snippets. And again, there we go. Books, like most men cannot remember the last book they read. 90% of all books in the Christian publishing industry are bought by women.
Yeah,
so if
that's true.
If you're going to write a book for men, get ready for not many people to buy it. But those who take advantage of this, we're finding that it has been very, very helpful for them.
Well, you're going for quality over quantity. There's definitely
there you go.
Appreciate you, man. Hey, thanks for hanging out. Just thanks. This has been awesome.
Thank you, Randy. My pleasure, brother.
And appreciate you guys hanging out. Hey, you need to hit share and tag somebody with this one because it'll encourage some men in your life. So do that, and please come back. We got more great interviews all week this week, live right here on Zoom, Life Today Live. If you haven't followed or subscribed, do that now, and we'll see you again tomorrow right here on Life Today Live.
Okay.